Okie dokie. Part 3, Lesson 2, Anchored. We are anchoring in 3 centers. This has come to me, this has arrived to me through a lot of experimental play with myself and going to really taboo places to discover this need in myself, for myself, and using a lot of resources, both accessible, like free community resources, and expensive trainings that in one way or another continually reinforced that I have to be my own best resource. And as someone that struggled in different ways, addictions, entanglement, narcissistic environments and relationships, neurodiverse, flexible personality, openness that also equated to rigidity and like very victimized stories. You know, my body is just collapsing in naming those things. And so recycling that energy, feeling my feet on the ground, giving my body permission to let go of that energy that I just called in to my body through naming those things, because I viscerally felt the energy of those stories. So carrying on from lesson 1, which was being a tubular vessel, there are 3 points that I want you to be aware of inside yourself, or start building more and more awareness of inside yourself, or that maybe you already have a really strong relationship with inside yourself. In the center of your psyche, the center of your heart, and the center of your lower abdomen, like a couple inches below your belly button, or maybe, so like the center of your womb space, or the center of your hara, if you are not carrying a womb in your body at this time. These centers speak in stillness and silence. They are each and all reflections of like the center point of our universe, of the point of source itself, and the center of our planet. They're mirror points. That are continuously thriving in their stillness and silence. And in silence, energy speaks volumes. And we translate energy through intuition. And then sometimes it formulates into images or words, art. And that's the next part that we'll play with. The lesson 3 is more about the expression and how we end up offering from these places, which also has to do with we're building our protection, our self-protection through empowerment, not through imprisoning ourselves and building walls and barriers and blockades. And there are perhaps many layers of that going on around the center of your psyche, around your heart, and in your womb or your hara. Because those are the power points. And there's likely been a lot of communication in your life that you are not allowed to be anchored there. How bad, wrong, inappropriate of you to have a relationship with those places. Returning to our tubular vessel, letting any energy arising with those statements, with that recognition, flow, be recycled above and below. Take any movement, any vocalization. Pause this if you need to give yourself more time and space. So much permission to feel what you feel. See what you see inside. And have the conscious intention that it's allowed to be completed in the quality of your presence here and now. The safety of your own quality, attention, and presence here and now. And the connection above and below with Source and the earth, and the witnessing, embracing, approving, accepting quality of those presences above and below. Receiving whatever you're releasing to be recycled, and also giving to you infinitely, so long as you use your free will to receive, to unlock your vessel, to be in this flow. And what increases our capacity for that is stabilizing in these centers. And how we stabilize is through the practice, the process that we just did, which is acknowledgement and conscious discharge, conscious circulation, and then reconnecting with the centers. Whether it's more of an idea right now, or whether you can viscerally, sensationally, words fall short because it's a pure energetic experience, but of actually going to that center point with your awareness, which is not something that I had access to for many decades. And now that I do, it's a feeling of just so blessed and so grateful to myself and every bit of support, whether it's been the crazy shit that drove me to be inspired and determined that didn't so much seem like support, or whether it was the incredible earth angels or opportunities that arose to be safe, to witness the blocks in my psyche, in my heart, and in my body, in my lower centers, which is the very human experience of attachment. And we perpetuate the attachments in the lower centers through stories, looping stories, Repeating. Cycling energy, particularly here, not letting it cycle through to our hearts, which happens when we are non-judgmental about those stories. They start to naturally cycle, and that circulation dislodges blocks around the heart. And as we come into that more radiant, radical non-judgment of our own stories and experiences, the attachments start to dissolve, which doesn't mean that we don't care, which doesn't mean we don't have loving connection with others. It's the elimination, the dissolution of codependence into sovereignty, which enables really healthy interdependence, interplay with external people and things. So wherever you feel called, whether it's womb work, working with the lower energy centers, working with the heart space, working with the psyche, there are just infinite practitioners, healers, artists that are doing and practicing in ways that provoke these places, those blocks, to dissolve or to be noticed so that you can discharge the energy that's locked there. And so letting yourself feel, letting yourself engage life, experience, adventure through art, through relationship, letting yourself be triggered and taking the time in the moment. I'm having this experience inside of being in an art gallery and feeling triggered, and I don't know why, but this grief is coming up, and it's I am strong, I can, I've been trained in this version of strength that I can just suppress that, I can swallow it, I can hold it for later, say later, but then it's locked up, and do I really want to go back to that later? Yes, but also no. Closing your eyes and letting yourself cry or take deep breaths and realizing that you have way more permission than you've probably been allowing yourself to perceive to do that feeling work in the moment, and letting it be simple, sending it up or down, calling on the support from above or below to witness, to be with you, feeling held, feeling the safe, secure experience with yourself. I think the outside culture right now really trains us to rely on therapists, friends, family for talk therapy, for conversations that breed permission. And I'm not saying there's anything, I think there's a lot of potential in that as well, but you don't need that to feel safe. I think patriarchy is lingering in our perception that safety requires an external witness. In my experience, an external witness can take you into the felt sense of being safe. Many healers, therapists, are practicing being anchored in themselves, non-judgmental witnesses, and so they provide that felt sense of safety, which builds the muscle memory of it. And so pursue what your intuition is guiding you to in terms of any and all of that. And then let yourself have those experiences, whatever it is that breeds permission, that gives you that felt sense of safety. And I am introducing in the lesson 1, or reminding or emphasizing permission to be connected above and below, and to let those, the source and the earth entity, be a witness, be your comrades, your guides and guardians, your equals and your gurus. And although I could go in lots of directions with words, the point being that you feel held, witnessed, supported, approved, accepted, no matter what memories are coming up, no matter what experiences are occurring, no matter what feelings are erupting inside you or around you that need to be grounded and recycled, allowed to return to their natural state of energy in motion, universal life force. Letting that charge out so that there's room for that freshness to cycle and circulate through you. So that every single experience that you have, moment by moment in your life, is nurturing and nourishing. So that self-love, self-care in this way is an ongoing, everyday experience that eliminates the self-harm and self-abuse of not doing this that is quite persistent in our human landscape. And that is what compounds and evolves into the other scary stuff of abuse and conflict and harm. And so in doing this with ourselves, it is a radical action that addresses all that external stuff. This is your biggest, most profound, prolific, effective, efficient gateway to making a difference in whatever it is that you care about. I heard the question, am I getting off track? And then it was like my awareness slid into center. And there was maybe some in that doubt or that sudden self-awareness again, where I was sort of channeling and in a groove. The sudden doubt, and that can be really disassociative. And I experienced that as like a spinning sensation. And it was like, and my awareness was kind of wobbling, and it was like, back to center. Dropping in. Feeling presence in all three of those spots. Feeling them aligned, maybe shifting and wobbling, but also more in alignment than ever before. Feeling the energy moving. I don't know what or why it is, but it's moving through my feet, through my head, and it's moving in both directions. I can feel it. It's pretty subtle, but also pretty strong in a subtle way. This is my power. It's my gift to myself and to, everything that I care about. Full spectrum, flexible stability, leading edge, secure trust in self. That's what I labeled this lesson as. When you're anchored, you can let yourself channel and explore and go way out there and feel safe, and also be able to slurp back and check in with yourself, and then go out again and maybe even explore further, express more, experiment while feeling stabilized, trusting yourself. There's a term really coming up strong in my mind, and I'm sort of resisting introducing it because it feels like this whole other realm, but it's the razor's edge. That's what this is. It's the razor's edge of consciousness, of compassion, and of human capacity for manifesting. In terms of law of attraction, you have to feel that future iteration of manifestation to be able to allow it in. And that can be really confusing when you're still experiencing all of the stuff that's been distracting you and distancing you from that thing that you dearly desire. This being centered, as you go deeper and deeper into these centers through this conscious awareness, the conscious play, the conscious coming back to it in whatever you're doing, moment by moment, that joy of the moment, the security of the moment, the ability to feel into future projections, like feel it present now, it's there. And so my experience as a neurodivergent person, as a very naturally and undeniably and incorrigibly flexible, open person has been directives to go to a personality disorder clinic, a lot of feedback of being used as a scapegoat because I express in so many different ways and I haven't been able to deny the expression of emotion. My dog's just getting uncomfortable at my feet, I guess, moving out. Flexibility without that stabilization inside. Looks like you have the capacity probably to be a great actor or artist. You can think outside the box, you can see from different angles, or you can express or perform in many different ways. You can be a whole bunch of different people. But without the stabilization, we don't necessarily feel safe. I think this is what I'm hearing is like that's where addiction comes into play. I'm not going to dive into that subject, but I'd be willing to in a different location. But feeling uncomfortable with with one's own flexibility and with the dialogue between the center of the psyche that is radically conscious, that understands, has a connection to your own capacity to express in any and every direction. So your ability to relate to anyone and everything comes from there. And most of us are trained to shut that down, to identify more singular, narrow identity, to be something or someone. We have stories, we have like lineage and history and stories that hold us. We let ourselves be anchored in that, but those are all like outside of ourselves, or those are all like thought loops that are not as steady. They may be seemingly steady in the 3D world, but I think we all intimately know the torture, the chaos of whether we've identified it as that or not, but of trying to be anchored by thought loops or stories or labels. The conflict comes in because life is always promoting, conspiring for another level of freedom, which comes from being anchored in the center of your psyche, which can relate to those stories. It doesn't need to deny or dismiss them, but it doesn't necessarily bank your identity. Your consciousness is not caught up there. It's able to stretch, to imagine, to relate to understand your capacity for any expression. We come in, I'm thinking of like astrology, you're kind of set up for certain paths, certain expressions, but each expression also has a high and a low road. And so when you get into that, it's so layered and dynamic that there is, even as your very unique self, there's so many different ways you can express. And the point is that your true identity is the center point that's capable in going in any of those directions. And it's from that center point that you'll be able to consciously navigate which direction you're going in. That's the razor's edge of consciousness, which lives at the center of your psyche and is in reflection with the razor's edge of compassion, which we're talking about when we say like the relatedness, the acceptance, the approval of every expression of life. Doesn't mean that that's exactly how you would design it, but through that acceptance, you're accessing your power to redesign reality. And so in rejecting anything, which happens a lot through our programming that we've touched on already in this short yet extensive conversation, when we're rejecting, we're resisting the radical compassion that exists at the center of ourselves, that's in reflection with the center of the universe and of the center of the earth, which is just completely non-judgmental. Like the earth is like, yeah, give it all to me, I'll recycle it all. It's like you're all, whatever terms you think of it is, you're all my children, it's all good. And that was something actually I meant to mention, or that had crossed my mind when we were talking about the psyche, and like a lot of the ways that enable our closing down is quantifying, qualifying something as good, bad. And we've been trained to want to be good. And that's limiting us in focusing on one end of the spectrum, when, as energy masters, we must be aware of and witnessing both inside ourselves and externally. And that's the razor's edge. And your tubular vessel becomes like the center point of the infinity sign, where all energy is allowed to flow through, because you're not scared. There is a fearlessness that comes with being centered, because it doesn't throw you off. Because external stuff doesn't have that power over you anymore. The leading edge, the razor's edge of manifesting, of always expanding further into your, vortex, as Abraham Hicks says, or into your dream reality. There's no end to it. You're producing desire, and desire is natural in the face of contrast and conflict. That's like the grinding tectonic plates that we mentioned that creates the pressure that launches the rockets, and the universe and the energy of the earth conspires to create that desire. And then we have to be the cooperative component that is centered to allow the merging of this physical 3D experience with that next level reality. We have to be open to let it drop in. We have to be anchored to be able to project into it, to feel it. This is high level stuff. It's leading edge conversation. And it can like rack your mind and rip you open. And that's all kind of required. And it's not so daunting and dangerous when you feel your own centers, when you trust that they are there for you, thriving constantly. And that's a place that you can bring your attention and steady yourself in. That's you. If there is any definition of you, that's it. And it enables you, your play and performance in any direction that you feel passionate about. Or even if you feel pressured to perform in a certain way and you're committed to that, bringing your best self to it is this. So whether you're letting go of any expectation, obligation, energy, which I would say is my recommendation for true energy mastery. However, we are all in our own dance on this human plane with our own soul promises, so I can't speak for you in that way. And I can't say that's necessarily the ultimate goal. But I can say that if you are passionate and devoted to something, then it's likely that you have a strong desire to bring your best self into it. And I have a deep trust that your best self is you at the center of your psyche, in incredibly loving relationship with the center of your heart and the center of your womb or your hara. And this is being able to see in the darkness, to be able to see through the darkness being any of the contexts, whether it's seeing through the evil to not be distracted by it, and yet also to contribute your best, and to be of service at transforming, transmuting those expressions through just this work with yourself. Or the darkness as the mystery, the unknown, steadying yourself. What you do control is your relationship with these center points and your relationship with your tubular vessel. And the darkness as the beyond, the death space or the infinite space. A place where the soul is is president, is what I heard, but where the soul leads. And the ego, if it exists there, it's in complete reverence for the soul, in awe and submission to the soul, in service to the soul. And so we experience that in a way every time we discharge. We're in relationship with that. And every time we dissolve, we break through, we acknowledge, we move the energy of any blocks around our center points that were there out of ego, evoked protective, defensive mechanisms, to blend in and to, like, because we each innately deeply cherish these points. That's our tenderness, it's our sanity, it's our creation center. We know in ourselves how valuable those points are. And so the ego has helped us to hide / protect. Hide / like hold. Hide / hold, which is the both ends of one spectrum of protection. And just in your discharging, using your incredible, immaculate tubular vessel, letting yourself melt into the center points again and again, playing with yourself this way, in the face of anything and everything. And I'm going to leave you with an invitation that, especially in overwhelm, but also practicing in any given moment, like, okay, I'm looking around my house right now. There are not as many dishes as there has been, but there's a lot of dishes sitting on my table here, on the stove there, on the counter there, which is like an energy of chaos to me. And I've got all these ideas that I want to act on, and there's tasks outside, and awareness of my child coming home soon just came in, and there's 3 dogs and a cat here. Okay, so all those things I love and will be available to attend to, but it's also like chaos. Okay, so that's just one kind of cute example of chaos, but then there's also these moments of overwhelm, and overwhelm can be the like list of inspired things I want to take action on, or overwhelm can be those triggering moments, or the inundation of stimulation of a public space, or of just having a lot of emotion that's needing to be discharged, and you're just trying to hold on because you're trying to do the dishes and you're trying to take care of the stuff, and your kid is poking at you, or your phone is ringing, some things are just pressing you. The world is conspiring in your favor to encourage you to discharge, but it feels like overwhelm in those moments. The play here is, I invite you to, with your, so whatever of those examples apply to you in whatever moment, I invite you to sweep with your attention through all of those things, or even your arms. Like, I do like using the body because, again, it invites the energetic awareness and like the muscle memory. And I find that can come up in the pivotal moments where we don't really have the faculties available to consciously coach us. We want the muscle memory to be there, for it to click, for like our arms to just kind of start to do this thing of like, okay, I am scooping up all of it. Breathing up and exhaling through that center line. So dropping the energy of it through the center of your psyche, through your heart, through your womb, and letting it release through your root, through your feet. And inhaling energy up, then returning to your tube. You've just centered yourself, returning to the tube, sucking earth energy up to nourish you. Sucking it all the way up through your lower center, your center, your upper center, and sending that energy to be recycled by source. And you can just keep inhaling up and down and through a loop, above and below, and feeling it moving, the energy moving through each of your centers. But the main invitation is, before that, collecting everything, stretching whatever full spectrum experience you're having, gathering it, taking both ends, and letting them unite in your tubular vessel. And let the energy move through. And let whatever gets lit up or ignited be so. Right now, there's a lot of tension in my hips, and so I'm called to move my hips, to do a hip swirl, and just inviting whatever's coming up there. I don't need to know what stories or who did what or what, ancestral inheritance this is. I invite it to be released. I'm scooping everything that's there. So, using the inhale as like a scooping, whether you're scooping source energy or you're scooping everything around you that you're responsible for, that you're connected to, scooping up earth energy. The inhale is like scooping, receiving, willingly receiving. And then the exhale is moving it through your tubular vessel, through your three centers, and releasing to be recycled through the bottom or the top. Can always be moving both ways. So, as complicated as much as that might be, there's a simplicity at the center of it, and I hope that that reached you in words or in energy. And I love that we're here. I'll see you in the next video.